Hey, yo, what's up, YouTube, man? It's your boy, Ashton Jackson, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about what the Dallas Cowboys did week one, like the moves that they made, the trades, and stuff like that, and then I'm also going to be talking about what they should be focusing on in week two of free agency, like potential contract extensions from their own players and things of that nature. So before we hop into the video, I would appreciate if you guys liked the video, subscribe if you're new, comment, and share my video with anyone who you think will enjoy my content. You can just follow me on my YouTube, hit that bell, everything like that, that notification bell to let you guys know every single time that I post a video, because so far with these moves, I have been keeping up with them in terms of when Rashawn Gary was traded to the Dallas Cowboys from the Green Bay Packers for a 2027 fourth round pick. That was early in the morning. I was up and I made a video. So I already talked about that move. I really like what the Dallas Cowboys did, to be honest with you, in the first week of free agency. Contrary to some belief, if you ask some Cowboy fans, we didn't do a whole lot in free agency. Now, I can understand what they're saying, but if you just listen to what the Dallas Cowboys have been saying they don't want to sign players that have injury history, and most of the players that we were going after has some sort of injury history, whether that was Trey Hendrickson, who didn't play all of last year and who had injury concerns the year before, prior in 2024, when he was on the first year of that franchise tag. And then you also look at Max Crosby, hell of a player. I still think that the Dallas Cowboys should trade for him regardless. But with, Dr. Cooper, who does all the major surgeries in Dallas, and he's part of our medical staff, he was the one that broke the news to the Ravens, like, hey, he's not ready to go and things like that. So that's what made the Baltimore Ravens ultimately back out and get cold feet on the deal. So I won't be surprised if the Dallas Cowboys try to go after him. Maybe once time passes, maybe after the draft or before the trade deadline, I can see them trying to make a move for a player like that. I wanted Devin Lloyd, but there was injury concerns with Devin Lloyd, and there were some concerns about, hey, should the Dallas Cowboys even go after a player like that who has sometimes trouble seeing the field and diagnosing plays and things like that. That's what I heard from Brian Broaddus on Crown Global Media. If I misquoted, it's my bad, but I thought I heard something of that magnitude. Nakobe Dean, we offered a little bit more than what the Raiders did, but Nakobe Dean just wanted to play with his teammates and wanted to go play in Vegas because he thought that was more of a secure spot than coming here in Dallas. So that made all the sense in the world on that front once I heard what happened with that. But I like the moves that the Dallas Cowboys made. They got better at DN by getting a guy like Rashawn Gary. That is your DeMarcus Lawrence type replacement, in my opinion. He's going to be a hell of a run stopper. He's going to be able to bring that attitude up front in which you need. You signed safety or just defensive back Jalen Thompson to a 3-year deal. Just something worth of note. That was the highest paid free agent that we had since Brandon Carr in 2012, 2013. That was the last time that we paid market money. So that made all the sense in the world, because again, Jalen Thompson, bringing him in, he was a connection to Ryan Smith, who is now part of our staff being the defensive backs coach. So Jalen Thompson, he can play deep safety. He can play linebacker at times when you want him to. He can play that big nickel role. He can play slot. He can line up everywhere that you need him to, and I think he's that utility player that Christian Parker was alluding to in his first press conference, talking about he wants a corner. He wants that nickel corner that, when you're playing backyard football, he's the first pick because he can do everything that you need him to do. And I think Jalen Thompson is one of those guys. I think PJ Locke was a really solid deal. Again, we were linked to him because of Christian Parker's ties formerly being in Denver and PJ Locke being there at the same time. PJ Locke can take the ball away. We've seen him make a big play in the divisional round versus the Buffalo Bills. He can make some plays. He's not afraid to come down and hit and tackle. I think this is a player that if the Dallas Cowboys do decide to draft the safety early, that I can see PJ Locke being probably the guy that plays teams for you and plays occasional starting safety free. But again, you paid him $5 million, and I don't think he's going to be strictly teams. I think he's going to play some teams, and he's going to play starting safety for you as well. We also signed quarterback Sam Howell to a 1-year deal. We remember him starting in the 2023 year. That's when, on Thanksgiving, we played him, and DeRon Bland pick sixed him, took it to the house to break the single season pick six record, and that was against that quarterback. Went to Seattle. He backed up Geno Smith, I want to say, in 2024, and then in 2025 he was a backup to Jalen Hurts. So it made sense for the Dallas Cowboys to bring in a guy like Sam Howell, who has starter experience in the NFL, and then not only that, he's a guy that can bring competition to a guy like Joe Milton. Because again, you don't prepare for Dak Prescott to go down. But if Dak Prescott was to go down for a few weeks, I would rather have Sam Howell play because I feel like he can start and be a serviceable starting quarterback. But if anything longer than a week, like 7-8 weeks, I would definitely would want Joe Milton to play because ultimately at that point your season could potentially be over. But we don't really want to discuss that. But again, we have to prepare for it. We signed two defensive ends. One, Sam Williams, to a 3-year deal. I felt like the Dallas Cowboys are just signing him for depth purposes. We're not looking for him to have any real, stakes to be here, or we're not looking for him to be a rotational pass rusher. I think he's just a depth piece. Same goes for Tyrus Sweet. I really like the game, and because he was here prior, I remember him in 2022. I remember him in 2023. Then he went over to the Detroit Lions, and he was over there for a little bit. So I remember Tyrus Sweet. He's a really solid player. I like him, and I think that was a really solid pick by the Dallas Cowboys. I think, honestly, outside of signing Jalen Thompson, I think one of your most underrated cornerback signings this year, or so far this year in free agency, has been Kobe Durant. He was a starting free agent, or my bad, he was a starting cornerback for the Los Angeles Rams for a couple of years. He made a lot of big plays. You look at that Tampa Bay Buccaneer game where he made that play off of Cade Otton. It was in LA. You think about the time in which he made a big play against the Chicago Bears in the divisional round. He picked off Caleb Williams to ultimately seal the deal and stop the Bears from gaining momentum and scoring a touchdown. So Kobe Durant can make a really great play. He's an outside corner that I love. He doesn't fit the typical measurables that a guy like Clay typically likes. So for him to go out there and him be able to make plays, and he had a quote when he got signed that said, hey, my job is to take the ball and give it back to Dak a few extra times and have him do what he do. So I really like the attitude in which that we have with Kobe Durant. He's going to be a trash talker, and he's somebody that I believe can live up to that trash talk, and a player that can make big plays for this team. Another defensive tackle that we did sign, because hindsight says that if you look at what the Dallas Cowboys did by signing Otito Ogbonani from the Los Angeles Chargers. Sorry if I butchered his name, but we signed him, I want to say, the day before we traded Osa Odigizua and Solomon Thomas. But again, we signed him to a 1-year deal. He's going to be a nose tackle for you, and I think he can be really stout for you in the run game. Plays with violence, plays with leverage, and things of that nature. He's a really solid player, and he's going to be a nice rotational depth piece for the Dallas Cowboys at the nose tackle position. But I still feel like the Dallas Cowboys should probably go out and go figure out 3-tech if they sign one sometime in day 3, or draft one in day 3, or if they can still sign one. And the last noteworthy week 1 move that we did make was trade Osa Odigizua to the San Francisco 49ers for a 3rd round pick. That 3rd round pick is 92nd overall in the 3rd round, which is basically like a 4th round pick at that point. I didn't really like the trade to the team. I didn't mind the compensation though. I felt like, the Cincinnati Bengals, I heard online through Twitter that, potentially the Cincinnati Bengals were a player for a guy like Osa Odigizua, but I would have loved to possibly gotten a 3rd round pick from the Cincinnati Bengals if that was even true. And then we just swapped 7th round picks by giving up Solomon Thomas to the Tennessee Titans. He goes play with his former coach in Robert Saleh, and then also our former defensive line coach Aaron Ryan Cotton. He's over there in Tennessee as well. So those ties made sense as well. Now, for me, I still feel like the Dallas Cowboys need to still upgrade at interior linebacker, defensive end, and corner. I feel like those are the big major needs that the Dallas Cowboys need to go after this week in free agency. I think they also need to go sign George Pickens and get that deal done. Again, George Pickens is represented by David Mugheletta by Athletes First, and Puka Nacua is also an Athletes First player as well. And I believe both of those clients and both of those players are up for not only major deals, but a lot of times when you're part of the same agency and you want to, again, keep it in the family, things like that. I think what they're trying to do is trying to see who budgets first. So I felt like if the Rams signed Puka first, I felt like now, okay, the Dallas Cowboys want to pay a little bit more pricier type of price for a player like George Pickens, which I believe it's worth it. But if I'm the Dallas Cowboys, I would try to, if I'm the Dallas Cowboys, I would try my best to try and go get George Pickens' deal done, so that's why he can be here for the full offseason. There's no sitting out or any potential holdouts. But if the Dallas Cowboys want to do their game, they'll ultimately do it. But I want the Dallas Cowboys to sign George Pickens, so that's why there's not a lot of drama when it comes to that side of the ball and things of that nature. But again, linebacker, inside linebacker, I feel like the Dallas Cowboys need to go after veterans. Bobby Wagner, Levante David, Shaq Thompson, Eric Kendricks, Matt Milano. Why? Because I feel like those are guys that can be green dot guys that have played in the league for at least 8, 9+ years, and guys that can come in here and make an impact for you and can potentially be a player's coach, kind of like what Chris Paul is typically in the NBA. I want players like that where you can bring in a guy like Bobby Wagner, former green dot guy. You bring him in, and let's say you draft C.J. Allen. You draft, if let's say you get Anthony Hill Jr. Let's say Sonny Styles falls to you. I think having any of those names, I think C.J. Allen's more in play because the Dallas Cowboys have Georgia ties right now. So I feel like if the Dallas Cowboys want to sign Bobby Wagner, Levante David for sure, those are two future Hall of Famer guys that are in the middle of those defenses, formerly with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Levante David, and then being green dot guy everywhere he goes in Bobby Wagner, whether that was in Seattle for 10+ years, the Rams, the Washington Commanders. I really love the way in which Bobby Wagner plays football, and I believe he can be a really good player coach for you, and he'll fit in the scheme in my opinion. I think the biggest name that we should go after, who's less than 30 years old and I feel like can still play at a high level, is Bobby Okereke from the New York Giants. He's a really violent, physical player that can come down and fill the run. I really like Bobby Okereke, and I think the Dallas Cowboys should sign him, sign a veteran, and those two players, including what you got in the inside linebacker currently on your team, because if you were to play a game, Shamar James and DeMar Overshown would be your starting linebackers. And although I don't feel too confident in it, I like DeMar Overshown, but his health has been a concern ever since he's been here. So if I'm the Dallas Cowboys, those are players that I'm looking at. Defensive end, current free agents like Von Miller, Hassan Reddick, Cleveland Farrell, Cam Jordan. I think all those guys could be very good veteran depth pieces for your team that can go after the passer. Highly productive players out of the guys I just named. And again, those guys don't stop me from potentially drafting a Ruben Bain at 12 or not Sonny Styles, but David Bailey out of Texas Tech, Ruben Bain Jr. out of Miami. I think those guys don't stop you from still getting one of these veterans, and vice versa. Again, the veterans don't stop you from getting a really good young defensive end, and these young defensive ends don't stop you from getting some of these depth pieces as well. I still feel like the Dallas Cowboys should trade for a defensive end. If we're not right now pursuing Max Crosby or we're not pursuing anybody else, I feel like some players that we should look for is Josh Sweat, formerly from the Philadelphia Eagles. Won the Super Bowl, dipped, got back in Arizona. Now he wants to get traded, and that's what has been reported. Another player that I feel like the Dallas Cowboys should go after is Kayvon Thibodeau from your rival, the New York Giants. I feel like we should try and see if we can acquire him for about a 5th round pick. I'm not going to give up our 4th round pick for him because I think that would be too worthy for the Giants, and that would be too much compensation for a player who's in the last year of his deal and hasn't done a whole lot in the league to warrant anything more than a 5th round pick right now. So if I'm the Dallas Cowboys, I'll try to kick the tires on that. The last position I feel like the Dallas Cowboys should go after is the cornerback position. Most of these players can play outside. Recently released cornerback from the Tennessee Titans is L'Jarius Sneed. I would love if he can come here and play with the Dallas Cowboys. I think another player we should be looking at is Tre'Davious White. That's going to be a backup depth piece I feel like the Dallas Cowboys could use. And the last player I feel like the Dallas Cowboys should go after is Rasul Douglas. So let me know what you guys think about what the Dallas Cowboys should do moving forward in free agency. Did you like what they did so far week 1? And what else do you think the Dallas Cowboys should do? Should they get this George Pickens deal done? What about Brandon Aubrey? Things like that. So that's about it for the video. Hope you guys have a nice day. Stay safe, stay blessed. Bye.